Welcome to JayEmm Friends, and today it's a little bit more and friends than JayEmm, although I am out in JayEmm's Ferrari 550 Maranello. This is such a beautiful car. It's a car that I just never really thought I would fall for in quite the way that I have. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about something else. Now, for those of you who've been watching this channel, you'll know that I have a preference for a slightly unfiltered driving experience. You know, cars that are a little bit harsher, a little bit rougher on the road. Yes, I've got an Audi R8 GT Spider, but it's not your dailyable supercar as you'd expect. The GT is actually a more track-prepared version of the car, not especially road-friendly, but those seats, whilst uncomfortable, give you a connection to the car and the road that you just don't get in any other R8. Also, the suspension is completely different on that car, making it a much stiffer ride. Similarly, my Lamborghini Gallardo LP570-4 Superleggera Edizione Tecnica has a similar experience. In fact, that is an even harsher driving experience, which is one of the reasons why I like that so much. Even my 370Z Nismo, which has been absent from the channel for a while but is going to be making a comeback very soon, and in style, even that, I ripped off the Nismo suspension and put on KW V3 coilovers, lowered it, stiffened it, to give it that extra je ne sais quoi, that extra unfilteredness to the driving experience. And a few years ago, I was filming a video with James, a very, very emotional video for me, with a pair of Bristol cars. Now, we had a Bristol 411 and 404. Now, the little red 404 actually stole my heart. It got to me in a way that I wasn't expecting. I just don't think of myself as a classic car lover. I think of myself as more of a person who prefers that race car for the road type experience, something a bit more modern. But when I was driving that car, something dawned on me, that maybe my love for this unfiltered driving experience isn't just a love of the race car for the road experience, but maybe deep down, I'm a secret classic car lover. Now, this is something I didn't know about myself until I drove that particular Bristol. The 411 was great, but it had been modernized in a lot of ways. The 404 was in a much more original condition. And it was just incredible. The way that it grabbed me, the way that it connected with me while I was driving it was absolutely phenomenal. Now, having realized that and taken care of one of my other very specific desires, and that's to own a Lamborghini, I'm now starting to think maybe a classic car is on the cards. Now, don't worry, we're not going to be doing an entire Ant's First Classic Car series, or maybe we will. Let us know in the comments if that's something you're interested in. But we are going to make a point of testing out some interesting classics in the months ahead. In fact, one of the next cars that we've got lined up is a 25-year-old modern classic, a Z3 M Coupe. James and I will be taking that out. He's going to be doing a review on his channel, and I'm going to be going for a drive in it as well. So today I'm out in the 550 Maranello just to see if that realization on that day in that beautiful Bristol 404, that little red pocket rocket, was just a moment in time, just a fleeting experience that maybe I read too much into it. Maybe I wasn't really into a classic car. Maybe I still do like my more modern race car for the road or track-oriented specials that give me that unfiltered experience. Could it have been just that car specifically that gave me that experience? It just goes. Oh, wow. And then you go into a corner and it just sticks way better than you'd expect. You can squeeze the throttle on way earlier than you think you should be able to in an old car like this with, I don't even know if it has traction control, does it? Oh, what a car. Now, one of the things you get in older cars is just an overall better connection to the mechanicals of the car. This particular car has a cable throttle, so there's no computer deciding what the throttle map's going to be. It's all down to you to feel the tension on that cable, the throttle opening, and squeezing on that throttle in a way that allows you to really connect with the car. Obviously this car has a gated manual, and the click, click, click of that is absolutely phenomenal. It's actually a wonderful experience. It's just so tactile in a way that many other gearboxes just can't achieve. Obviously the clutch pedal is the clutch pedal as on any manual, although on this it is very heavy. I mean, you drive this in town and honestly you come away feeling like you've done a leg day. The throttle cable in itself is quite heavy, although it's been improved. I think some work's been done on the car since I last drove it, and it's a lot easier to use now, a lot easier to modulate. And even on some modern cars, they now have brake-by-wire, which personally I find terrifying. The Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio that we tested on the channel a little while back, my son and I took it out, and that has brake-by-wire. And I had the good fortune, or misfortune, depending on which way you look at it, of actually driving one of the earlier Quadrifoglios on a test drive around Silverstone, well, around the Silverstone area with Alfa Romeo a few years ago. And I had to say that the brake just didn't feel quite right. There was this kind of weird dead zone where you start putting on the brake pressure, you squeeze the brake pressure, nothing new happens, and then you keep squeezing the brake pressure and then stuff happens again. It was a very weird experience. However, it seemed by the later models, including on the one that we tested on this channel, they had resolved that particular issue. I can kind of understand it on a hybrid because obviously they have to manage the regen and the brakes themselves by the pads. But on a car that doesn't have hybrid, I just don't understand the point of having brake-by-wire. I don't really want the brakes to behave differently depending on what mode I'm in. I just want them to be consistent so that I can feel my way through using those brakes and it doesn't change every time I change mode. Anyway, that's just me. Now the weighting on the steering on this car is also somewhat heavier than you might expect on a big GT cruiser, but I actually quite like it because when you do get on a road like this, you actually feel so much more than you'd imagine. Again, I just prefer that less filtered experience. Of course, it's hydraulic power steering, simply because of the age of the car, but it doesn't take away too much of the weighting on the wheel that gives you that extra sense of connection with the road. And that for me, I really like, even if I am cruising around. I don't want it to be soft and wallowy in the steering. Now, there are a couple of cars that have been on my list that are classics for quite some time. They've been dream cars of mine for years. Now, one of those cars is no surprise. It's a Datsun 240Z. For many will be no surprise simply because I've had 3 Zs now. If you've been following the Sports and Touring channel, I've had a 350Z, I had a 370Z, the original, then I had the V2 Nismo version. So I'm a bit of a Z fan, but the 240Z was just a car that I just felt was, I don't know, it was going to be too much trouble. Since then, I've discovered a company called MZR. Now, they build 240Zs to spec. They do a nut and bolt, ground up restoration, sourcing their frames and chassis from California to ensure they get cars that have a lot less rust. And they build these absolutely beautiful machines that you can design to your own standards, to what you want. There was one in particular that they made that had some slightly wider flared wheel arches that for me was gorgeous, and if I remember correctly was in a gunmetal grey, a metallic gunmetal colour. There's another car beyond that really appeals to me, and that is the DeTomaso Pantera. I actually saw that for a first time in a music video, which guess what, happened to be in a gunmetal colour, and I fell in love with it. It was gorgeous. It was the DeTomaso Pantera GT5, which is the one that's got the much more flared wheel arches. These are stunning cars, and when I saw that, I absolutely fell in love with it. Although I wasn't a huge fan of the idea of the sort of rumbly V8 that it ran. I always thought it deserved a flat, plain cranked V8, just so it had that exotic sound that its looks really did deserve. Now, I'm hoping to get my first drive in a Pantera in the not too distant future, because I've actually managed to convince, or at least put Jack of number 27 on the spot. So he has actually promised me a drive in his once he's got it fully finished and sorted and running the way he wants. I'm actually half scared to drive both the 240Z and the DeTomaso Pantera, because they're cars that I've just appreciated the looks of for so long, and I'm concerned that, oh, maybe I might not like them as much. What if I drive them and I'm like, no, I don't like them? So with the DeTomaso Pantera, I think with that, my intention would probably be to do like a bit of a resto mod type car. You know, not changing the appearance of the outside, but really just bringing the interior and the exterior paintwork up to standard, keeping it as original looking as possible and in period correct as possible, but possibly changing a few things like suspension, maybe the wheels and tires, and maybe one or two other bits and pieces like the engine. I'm thinking, yeah, 430 V8 engine swap, something along those lines. So as you can tell, these are quite ambitious projects and probably not things that I'm going to be able to do anytime soon, and certainly not something I'd be able to do without having to get rid of one of the other cars that I absolutely love, and I am trying to avoid doing that. So instead, there's probably my first classic car, something that isn't as ambitious a project, something that, yeah, sure, is going to require some maintenance. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, something that's not going to completely break the bank. So a classic Ferrari is probably not the idea for me, because one, it'll be relatively expensive to buy, and on top of that, the bills to get it up to standard, certainly anywhere close to the standard James has got this 550, which by the way is incredible. It's just going to be a set of bills that'll be, let's say, beyond my budget or beyond what I'd be willing to spend right now. So what I'm looking for is a classic car that isn't going to be hugely expensive to buy, that based on what I pay for it and what I'd have to spend on top to get it to a sensible level, doesn't cost me an arm and a leg, you know, maybe 35 to 40,000 pounds, I'd be okay with that. And the kind of car that I'd probably only break out on very special summer days, but is likely to at least hold its value, if not appreciate in value, especially after I do the maintenance that I would need to do on it. So the question I asked myself at the beginning of this video was, well, would driving the 550 Maranello kind of reinvigorate my interest in a classic car? And the answer is 100% yes. Now for me, this isn't the type of car that I would go for. The main reason being is that it's quite big, it's quite heavy, it's a bit of a beast in the sense that when you're navigating narrow spaces, it can feel a little on the large side. Not terribly, nothing like the F12. The F12, that feels huge. It's still of a manageable size, and its proportions and everything about its haunches in the mirrors helps you place the car. But it does feel like it's meant to be a sporty GT cruiser, and that's not really me. I tend to go for the lighter weight or smaller, more compact sports and supercars, simply because I really enjoy having a blat on a country lane, and I think to enjoy that, you just need something that's compact enough to fit between the lines comfortably, especially when there's a huge tractor coming the other way, taking over more than its lane. But also because I just like the nimbleness of those cars. So something not too small, but not big. Something nimble, something that handles well. That for me is what I've taken away from driving the 550 today. I also prefer to sit a fair bit lower than this, even though the fact is that this is actually quite low. So the trick's going to be finding that car. What make, what model, what edition, what year. So this is where I'm going to need your help, because I am going to be broadening my horizons as to what I'll be considering for this car. And of course, James is going to be helping me choose as well. So please let us know in the comments, what cars do you think will fit those criteria? You know, something that by the time I've got it roadworthy and running well, doesn't cost me more than about 35, 40 grand. That's purchase and preliminary work required on that car. Something that's relatively small, nimble, and sporty, but still 25 years or older. And even better, if you've got one of those cars and you're happy for me and James to test drive it on camera, then let us know via the email address in the description, and we'll get in touch with you to arrange a time where we can meet with you and take your car out and see if it is the one that I really should be considering. So I'm going to leave all of that with you, and in the meantime, please do make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, because it really helps us a lot. The bigger the subscriber base, the more opportunities we have to get sponsors on the channel, and the more opportunities we're going to then have to be able to make more content involving these cars. And if you haven't checked it out already, please check out our new podcast, The Radiator Arms, with me James of JayEmm on Cars, and Will, aka Will the Plank, where we discuss every Monday morning from 7 AM some new car related topic. And if you also happen to like content that's a bit more of a vlog about experiences with cars, please do check out Sports and Touring, my channel with my son, and we'll leave a link to that in the description too. And if we don't see you in any of those places, hope to see you here again soon on JayEmm Friends. Bye bye.